Hello, I'm Patrick, and that's Sarah, if you didn't know. Now, the good news is you're going to get two sessions of us today, one at 9:15-ish, and then again at 2:15. The first part of the session is going to do what we talked about, which is talking about growing and improving academic WorldQuest. And then in the second part, it's the more open-ended piece where we say, you know, we do a lot of cool things and good things already within the network. Maybe we could share some of that and scale it up. My understanding is Academic WorldQuest started as a local activity and now is nearing 50 councils participating. So the good news for you is that yesterday Washington, D.C. legalized recreational marijuana use. So at the break, if you really are bored, you can do that. And there will be snacks provided. For those that are on our task force, could you just stand up so we could recognize those that participated? Thank you. So stay standing just so we can recognize you. Don Sanford is in Peoria. Mara is in Cleveland. Netta is in San Francisco. Jiyin is in Kentucky. Jackie's in Seattle. Craig is with Fairfax Public Schools. Annie is with Pittsburgh. And we also have Uli, who's in Jacksonville, who could not be with us. She said that she's actually planning her academic WorldQuest now. And who else is not here that's on there? Megan Torrey is coming later from Connecticut. And this makes up your Global Ed Task Force. Sarah's going to get us right into academic WorldQuest.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Super excited to be here today. This is my first World Affairs Council national event. I'm a new board member that joined this summer and was particularly excited when I was talking with Bill and he said, you know, where we really need your help is on Global Ed Task Force, which is both a personal passion as well as a professional passion with my work with Rosetta Stone. So thrilled to be here. We're going to spend this morning's session talking about academic WorldQuest, and this is meant to be a conversation. So I'm going to get the ball rolling. Several members of the committee are going to be jumping in. Joanne is going to be participating and sharing her story, but I hope that all of you will have a chance to share your story to understand where the opportunities are for academic WorldQuest and how we can make it bigger and better. To kick us off, what I wanted to do, we have a terrific video that was shared with us by the Anchorage team. Is Anchorage here today? Yay! Your video is going to be featured. Thank you so much for creating this. This was just a wonderful way. How many people in this room have done academic WorldQuest? That, I would say, is half, if not even a little bit more. So for those of you who haven't, this will give you a spotlight into what it is. And for those of you who have, it's a great celebration of why this is such a great event. Now we pray to the gods of IT.
Academic WorldQuest, as sponsored by the World Affairs Councils of America, is an annual team competition for high school students across the nation. Every year, regional councils around the country submit topics for the competition, and the final selections are chosen and announced by the national office, along with a selected list of study materials. In preparation for the big event, the teams will study reports from official sources such as the United Nations, the World Bank, NATO, the Brookings Institution, and the United States Department of Commerce.
They add a little change to it every single year, so it's kind of interesting.
We're gonna, do the best to our ability. We'll see what happens at the end of the night.
I think it'll be fun, and I think we'll do all right.
I'm not really sure, honestly.
I feel pretty confident. We have a pretty good group here, and a lot of us know our stuff.
We'll do fine.
Topics covered in the past have included subjects such as U.S. economic competitiveness, the Cuban Missile Crisis, environmental sustainability, geography of the Middle East, and many more.
According to the U.S. Department of State's fact sheet on Jordan, in what year did Jordan lose control of the West Bank to Israel? Is it A, 1948, B, 1952, C, 1967, or D, 1973? Time starts now. Time. Please submit your answers. The U.S. State Department's fact sheet on Jordan notes that Jordan lost control over the West Bank to Israel in C, 1967.
The winning team from each regional competition will be awarded an expense-paid trip to Washington, D.C. to compete at the national event held in April.
Wow, my favorite part about going to WorldQuest in Washington, D.C. was visiting the embassies.
And that was a really awesome experience because I was interested in being a diplomat.
We were doing so much in so little time. We just wanted to do everything that there is to do in D.C.
My favorite part about the D.C. trip was meeting kids from all over the country.
Probably meeting the Egyptian team and learning about the things that they've been going through.
We need to be aware of the countries outside of the U.S. and I think it's really important that everyone learns about this.
So I came because it's fun and the rewards are amazing if you win.
In third place, our second runner-up, Bartlett 4. In second place, our first runner-up, Fairbanks. And so, the winner of the 2013 Alaska World Affairs Council WorldQuest competition, who will represent Alaska at the National WorldQuest competition in Washington, D.C. in April, West 2.
I would definitely recommend that other people join WorldQuest because it's just such a great opportunity to learn more about the world and to challenge yourself academically and do something different than normal school.
This is a great experience for great students. It's fun, it's challenging, and it's different.
Thank you, Alaska. That is such a great testimonial to what this is all about. It makes me want to participate this year. I'm going to see if they'll make an exception for me. So we have spent a lot of time as a committee talking about the vision for Academic WorldQuest and where we want it to go. And we came up with this summary of where we would like to see Academic WorldQuest go. A best-in-class, renowned educational competition that sparks high school students' interest and participation in world affairs. Very simple and very focused, and we think it's achievable. So the question that we asked ourselves is, what are the goals that what does that mean? How do we measure that and specifically drive towards? And there were two key goals that we wanted to go after. One was to grow participation. And when we talked about growing participation, this meant increasing the number of councils that were participating, increasing the number of schools that were participating at each council level, and increasing the diversity of the schools that were participating at the school levels. And we set ourselves a challenging but what we felt was an achievable goal, which was to get to greater than 50 councils by 2016. And you'll see how that is achievable. We're currently at 45, and Althea will correct me on that number. Our second key goal was to continuous improvement, and specifically put in there continuous improvement in recognizing we're never going to be done. We're always going to be wanting to improve the quality each year. So that continuous word was very important. But when we were talking about improvement, that was about content quality, about the program format, and about the program reputation. And when we look to say, how do we know if we're doing better, what we'll be looking at each year is how can we increase the satisfaction scores that we do in the surveys after each event among the councils, among the teachers, and among the students. Already our scores are very strong, but we know that we can improve in each of these three areas. So we're going to talk to you about some specific things that we would like to do that. I mentioned the participation. In 2010, we were at 40 councils participating. 2014, we were at 45. As I said, within 2 years, we'd like to be at greater 50. And although this is not an official goal, I'm challenging us to be at least 2 up in this coming year. And doors will be locked on the room today until we've achieved that goal. So how do we go about achieving these goals? Well, there are 3 key strategies, and then we'll talk about some specific ideas, and this is where we're really going to want to open it up to conversation on these ideas. The first one is to grow participation among the councils and the schools. Until we get critical mass, it's really hard for us to do anything else. The second is to improve the quality of the content and the format, and we'll talk about how we're going to do that. We also had a lot of debate about building awareness, and in our first iteration of this plan, we actually had build awareness as the #1 thing, because there were lots of conversations of, nobody knows who we are, nobody knows that we're doing it. But we realized that these two things feed each other, so we put the building awareness as our third, that first we really have to get to our critical mass of participation amongst our councils. Then we need to make sure that the quality of the program is the very best that can be, and only then will we start looking at larger programs around awareness and more public awareness of the program. We talked about a vision of, wouldn't it be great if one day this was as well known as, the National Spelling Bee or the GeoBee, and that is absolutely our long-term stretch vision. But if we started with that before we get our house in order, then we won't be successful. So that's why this is very specifically in this order. So let's jump in, and I'm going to invite Annie up to join with us. We went through each of those first 2 strategies and worked as a team, brainstorming, talking about ideas, talking about what's working, and came up with some critical ideas for how we can grow participation. And I'm going to ask Annie to talk about them.
Okay, thank you. So the first, you'll see that we would like to develop a how-to guide to facilitate the growth of academic WorldQuest across the country. And this is really would encompass various models that are being used, partnerships, sponsorship ideas, so really everything A to Z and what you would need to know to really run the competition smoothly. This would be easily disseminated via email, but our goal is to really have this as a piece of a resource hub, an educational resource hub that would ideally live on the WACA website, where you could, again, access best practices. There could even, with respect to academic WorldQuest, be a bank of questions available if you wanted to modify your local competition. So again, a way to really grow the sharing of information, really facilitate that broader collaboration among the councils throughout the system.
Questions or comments about that? Things that you're wishing for and hoping for with regards to resources?
And specifically, the how-to guide would even have very detailed information, like a brochure that you could adapt the flyer, the initial flyer for recruiting teams, press releases, the logo that's being used. One thing I noticed is that not everyone has access to maybe the high-quality GIF logo for academic WorldQuest. So those are the items that would be in this packet. Also, the PowerPoint that is currently developed by the National Office for use in local competitions with the questions, that would come as kind of a phase 2, since those are usually developed in the summertime.
Yes?
From a marketing standpoint, the video, I don't know if that can be shared. Obviously, it's focused heavily on Alaska, but that would be fantastic from you promoting it in our community.
Yeah, the video's on YouTube, so anybody can access it and share it and link it.
I downloaded it from YouTube. That's a great idea, and I think, looking at these things and getting them into a central place, but what exists out there, let's get out and share. And we're going to have a time in a few minutes where we're going to have each of the tables talking about what they're doing, what's working, and a report out. And then I've asked Zhao Yun to collect the ideas that are shared. So I know it's early and we haven't had a lot of coffee, but we're going to get a lot more talking going on. The second key area, thank you, Annie, was with regards to improving quality. As our first on-the-spot speaker this morning. The second area that we talked about was improving quality. And a big area is how can we work together, get feedback from the councils, and also at a national perspective in terms of topic selection and study guide creation. And I know a lot of work is going in there. There are already fantastic resources, but we can continue to do better there. A lot of requests and passion about investing in technology solutions to simplify scoring. I think that there are a lot of councils that are very jealous of your buzzer system that we saw in the video. So we're looking at solutions both, how can we share that, but also at a national level, are there ways that we can come up with negotiated terms so that councils can do that, just to make the scoring fairer, faster, and that's not the bulk of the effort, but that people are focused on participating in the event. Great debate about expanding the multi-choice format to include open questions. Some of the councils, and I don't know if any of you are here, are already starting to do that. Is anybody expanding the format at the local level right now? Nobody right now? I know that's being talked about at the national level, and how can we take within one topic having at least one open-ended question. It's challenging from a scoring standpoint, but I know we all want to make it as rich as possible, and so how do we balance making it something that's manageable and that everybody is on a fair playing ground for, with how can we dive in on a particular topic. So we'll be looking at that for the national event this year. And then last but not least, I know the national team is doing a lot of work on off-site activities that are offered at the national competition, so that it's a really rich and robust time that, you know, for everybody who spent so much effort, that the prize is not only participating in the national competition, but all of the pieces that go around that. Questions or comments on that? Otherwise, we're going to go to some sharing of stories, which I know will spark conversation. Yes, Joanne. Absolutely, and I think that idea of sharing, you know, as we're talking about the hub, it's not only a repository, but ultimately, and I don't know what all the capabilities are, maybe you guys have ideas, is how can that also be a message board or a place where people can have a dialogue and not just kind of download information? Annie, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, or?
Yeah, I think ideally, again, it would be a place where we can share information and best practices, ideas. Thank you. It would be, you know, a place where we could share those kinds of ideas and best practices, not only with what we could do with the competition itself, but you know, even how to collaborate with teachers. And we always get, you know, at our local competition, there are some teams, they do very well, and some of the other schools want to access those teachers to get, you know, the strategy input. So that, again, could be a place where we could have a discussion board, for example. We haven't really sorted out how to develop this resource hub, but it will be online and it will be interactive. That's the idea.
Okay, thank you. So what I'd love to do is I'd actually like to, oh, question in the back, yes.
Hi, thanks. I'm Mary from Boston. I'm new. I haven't been through an academic WorldQuest cycle yet. My colleague James is a veteran. But what you're describing is fascinating and exciting. It is, however, pretty much of, so far, a push discussion, not a pull discussion. In other words, how do we improve our product internally? And I know that at least in the Boston area, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of opportunities for out-of-school time. So this is a competitive marketplace, even though it is in the nonprofit world. So to establish what is of interest to the participants and how it benefits them is always key when we're, you know, talking about mission. I imagine that in each of our communities, it's very different what need WorldQuest fulfills. It may be that it's fulfilling needs of highest achieving students, or maybe it's fulfilling needs of disadvantaged students. All of those things I could imagine would be possible. So establishing some kind of national metrics is, you know, would be impossible. But as many of us nonprofit mechanics know, in the absence of metrics, anecdotes are great. So this is a long way of saying that more and more stories about students who participated and how it changed them will make it easier for us to market in our own communities, I feel sure.
That's a great idea, and I think something that we want to be gathering today over this next few days, but through the course of the year. How can we request that everybody who's participating is getting these stories of why it matters? Because at the end of the day, that really is all that matters in terms of improving participation. I think along those lines, we've got a few people who are wanted to share their stories of how they got started and what the benefits that they're having in the local market, so thank you for the perfect segue. I'm going to invite Joanna, who is going to share her story. And then a few other people. Joanne very kindly prepared slides for us, which is great. And then I think some others are going to talk both in terms of people who have been participating for some time, as well as I know Zhao Yin and Patrick are going to talk a little bit about just getting started in some of the challenges, because I know that there are questions around the room of, yeah, I'd love to do it, but these are all the problems I'm having of getting started. So you just press those buttons for us and I'll let you do that, okay? Just that side one, yeah. And as I copied and pasted, the formatting's not
okay,
right.
All right. This was our third year in participating in Academic WorldQuest. I'm from Hilton Head, South Carolina, and you ask what got us involved. We were very interested in extending our message as a council, our mission as a council, in improving awareness in international education to high school students. We had a champion on our board who was interested in taking that on. He had looked at the World Affairs Council's website and found that what I'll call a pre-packaged event that we could bring to Hilton Head rather than having to invent this product from whole cloth. Those are the reasons that got us involved 3 years ago. We began with the champion, a board approval. He brought that idea to the board. The board said, okay, run with it, especially if you've got somebody who wants to take that ball and run with it. It's a lot easier than trying to get somebody to raise their hand and say, yes, I'll take this on. And then fundraising from our membership. We are a member-supported council. We have no corporate memberships. There are no corporations in Hilton Head, South Carolina. So all of our members support our program. And the board said, it's fine for us to become involved with this, but it's not going to compete with our speaker program. So you have to raise the money to make this work. You have to raise the money from our members to make this program work. So year one, we, with guidance from Althea, who was tremendous in helping us get started on this, she made it very easy for us. She made the resources available to us in the form of the questions and the database that the schools would have access to. We established content with the local school district. Beaufort County School District is composed of 5 high schools within the county. And the superintendent at that time was very excited about this program that we brought to them. And she identified a person on her staff who would take the role in being our point person in developing this. We developed a budget, fundraising, had a local competition. We decided this first year, we're not going for the big show in Washington. We want to make sure we've got everything taken care of at the local level. So we had a local competition, 5 schools in the county, and each school presented 2 teams. So we had 10 teams participating, unlike the masses that you saw in the Alaska video. I've got a couple of pictures from our setup. Again, in watching that Alaska video, I really hate to show that to our people, especially because of the meal you had before the competition. We get together on a Saturday morning in the Hilton Head Island, South Carolina gym, and this is how that's set up for those 10 teams. You see that clicker on the left, that models what you saw in the Alaska video. One of the big changes our students find in coming to Washington is they deal with a paper and pencil. And many of them haven't dealt with a paper and pencil in a long time. So they have these clickers that they're used to using within the school district at their many competitions, their academic competitions. So that's a picture of our clicker, as the kids call it. This is one of the teams from Hilton Head. It's interesting, this team, they participated 2 years. The second year, it would appear the kids realized that the national competition just happens to fall on the same weekend as the senior prom. Now this, my friends, is a real dilemma. Well, it isn't for the kids because they decided their priority was with the prom. So the one team said, you know, we know we're going to win, so we're not going to participate this year. So now we have the prom clause. And for those of you who have developed policy and procedure, you know every policy has addressed one issue that you dealt with in real life. So we have the prom clause. And we say to the teams, you enter this competition with the idea that if you win, you will go to Washington for a national competition. It doesn't mean you would if you decide you're not going, you still have won, number one. You've beat the other 10 schools, the other 9 schools. But that's one thing we know we're going to have to deal with in the future. You're not going to change the date of your competition, it's my guess, so any of us who have high school proms have to deal with that. These are the kids who participated that first year. Our budget includes buying t-shirts for each of the teams. Each team gets a different color t-shirt. They decide the color, the logo. We pay for the printing. Those are the kids who participated that first year. Again, unlike that Alaska video you saw with those kids in a tie, it's not going to happen on a Saturday morning in Hilton Head. So those are the competitors that first year. It's key to our fundraising that these kids come to one of our programs. We have a speaker program not every Friday morning, 14 Fridays, 10 o'clock in the morning, we have a speaker. And we have an open invitation to the kids, to the schools, the coaches, and the superintendent and her staff. Anytime your students want to come, please let us know. We'll have front row seats for them. So it's key to get them there so that our members, our average age of membership is 70 plus, so that our members get to see these kids who often look like their grandkids. And our contributions go up considerably after those kids have appeared. This is our champion. Sorry, the formatting, it was okay in the format, the champion. Our champion is a retired dean of the School of Dentistry at Emory. He missed interacting with young folks. That's another reason he got involved and wanted to be our champion. Year 2, we continued with our relationship with the school district. The same person was involved, the same champion was involved. We raised more money. Going back to that first year, what the students who won first prize won, they each received an iPad. Now 3 years ago, that was really a big deal. So those 5 students, we had 4 students and an alternate, and their coach all received an iPad. Second place team received a $100 gift certificate each to Best Buy, and the third team received a $50 gift certificate, each of the students and the coach. So now the second year, we decided to bring them to Washington. We wanted to participate in the big game. And we pay for the student's trip, each student's trip to Washington. We pay for the coach's trip. We pay for their hotel. We give them $150 cash to spend while they're here. And we design activities, as you mentioned, you'd like to get into, activities here in Washington for them while they're here. The first year that they were here, we had a speaker who was the executive producer of the NewsHour. So we got to go to the NewsHour studio on a Thursday night, be there for the recording of the program, and received a studio tour. And the one takeaway those kids had from that is they got to see Harvey Srinivasan give the update from the newsroom there. And they noted that he had a tie and a jacket and shorts and sandals. You know, so that was their big takeaway from that. The other thing we were able to do that year is one of our members has a son-in-law who works in the Supreme Court, and he got us a tour of the Supreme Court, so that was really another highlight. Last year we got a Capitol tour. They got to meet with their senator. So we try to, I bring them in on Thursday. Friday we have as our tour day, Thursday afternoon and Friday. That first year, the students, what they really wanted to do as a group was go to the Holocaust Museum. And we facilitated that, and that was another thing that they really enjoyed doing. This is that team that won 2 years ago, green team from Beaufort High School. This is the team, again, the second year we brought them to our program, and that's a picture of the team that as they came to our speaker program that year. This is the team in Washington. As I said, we have some activities designed around getting into Washington. Not to say that none of these kids have ever been to Washington, but we did have one hayseed in the group who had never been here, and he was just a delight to be with. Every other, almost once an hour, he'd say, "Ms. Lemoyne, thank you for bringing me to Washington." You know, and that kind of comment just really tugs at your heart. This is a team. One of the things, in my previous life, I was a dean of students, and I remember at orientation, I would say to the students who were there for the first time, "How many of you are valedictorians or salutatorians?" And of course, there would be a number of them raise their hands. I said, "Now you see how many valedictorians and salutatorians are in this group, so it's not going to be easy for you." Well, likewise, getting to Washington, how many of you won your local competition? Everybody raises their hand. So one of the eye-openers for this group is seeing the kids from the other schools and how well prepared they are. And you cannot discount that feeling that they come away with. So year 3, very much like year 2, we had the same champion. We had a different person from the school district, but we have a very good relationship with the school district, and brought them to Washington again. That's the team that we brought to Washington. And that's that team that came to our speaker program. And the middle person there is Jeff Moss, who was one of our speakers, and I think he's been to some of your councils as well. The exciting thing for them last year was that embassy tour. They loved that. And they especially liked interacting with the other students at the tour. Lessons we learned: that the members will contribute to this high school program. They will contribute to this standalone program. They will make it happen. They want to be involved with a good program. We thought initially that our members would like to help the students prepare for the competition. Not so much. The coach works with them after school, and if you've been in the high schools recently, as one of our participants said earlier, they've got a lot of demands for their time. So sometimes something else will pull that team away from when they were supposed to get together to work. So getting our members into the school district, the school building to help, it's not going to work. They also have SLED investigations. The South Carolina Department of Law Enforcement has to pass a background check of anybody who goes into our school building. So it's not easy for our members to participate. The impact: improved test scores. You asked earlier about quantifiable measures. The person who keeps track of these test scores says that our highest score 3 years ago was the lowest score this last time. So those kids are learning this content, and they're remembering it, and they are doing well in the competition. Now, I can't say that our students come here and score any great achievement as far as first, second, or third place. They're in awe of Plano, Texas. But they come away with a great experience, and this year, all of our coaches are saying, it's not hard for me to get kids to participate because they've seen the local competition, they see what they can do if they win, that they really do get a wonderful time here in Washington and that interaction with other students. Oh, that's it, that's your slide. And then if we have time later, I have a video that was done by our students. So it's not glossy like Alaska, but at the end of it, there is some student testimonials. If we get time, I can show that to you. Thank you.
Joanne, I can't thank you enough for sharing your story. I think that really goes through how do you go from 0 to, 60, 100 miles an hour in 3 short years, and how you did that. Before we get to our table talk, where we'll talk at each of the tables, I want to share a couple of other stories, and particularly, I want to jump to somebody, Zhao Yin. I think you were talking about sort of having some challenges. There you are. With getting started and thinking about it. Do you want, here we've had an example of great success. I'd love to hear you share just a little bit about where you guys are as an organization.
Actually, we've done this for many. Thank you. We actually have done this for many years. I've
I looked back at some of the archived letters that we used to try to go out and get some money. And so we've done it for many years. I think it's been very uneven. In the beginning, we've had 16, 20, up to some 20 teams. But it's very hard to maintain every year because it's a very kind of a one-time program. It's how do we keep the momentum going? And students graduate, so that class goes, and then so it's kind of keeping students and keeping all the schools engaged during that other time. So we're kind of now looking at this WorldQuest. I mean, we've had several national champions, but from the same school. So I remember one year when we had the champion in our district who was not that school, and everyone got so excited that it's not the same person, the same team. So it's just how can we integrate this program, which is a one-time program in the year, into something more of a longer engagement, and then kind of mutually enforce it into something that our councils can be using as how we address the education issue, how our councils are involved in education. So I think the challenge is just, keeping the students engaged during the year, getting students and getting the schools, because we do have a lot of bigger competitions like Model UN, all these other things, Governor's Cup, and that they're really involved in. So it's just one more thing to get on their plate. So, that's something that we're trying to, improve. So love to hear more about that. Thanks.
Great. Thanks for sharing. Yes.
Cindy Miller, my first World Affairs Council. I'm from the southeastern Virginia, Greater Hampton Roads.
Welcome.
I heard you talk a lot about the model of WorldQuest. Just a quick note before table talk about our model is to involve corporate people as well as universities. Educators compete, corporations compete, so we have multiple layers in ours. In addition to this, focuses on the students, but this keeps a lot of corporate, involvement in it, and involves the community. So it's just a model. I didn't hear you. Does anyone else do that? Okay. Oh, yep.
Yeah. Pass it on.
I'm going to embarrass Madeline here. She is from Peoria and is now a volunteer with the conference here, but she's also a two-time attendee of the Academic WorldQuest from the Peoria team. So I think it might be interesting to get an insider's perspective, if she wouldn't mind.
Thank you, Madeline.
Hello, everyone. As Mrs. Weck said, my name is Madeline Sposato, and I'm going to move back here so that way you can all see me. And I was, as she mentioned, a two-time attendee of the Academic WorldQuest. And first of all, just before I start, does anyone have a particular question they'd like to ask me if you're looking to start the program? Because that would help me help you, figure out what kind of information is important. And if not, that's totally fine. Yes, hello, sir. That's a really excellent question. Obviously, diversity is really important. When I went in the last 2 years, I would say that while there were people from all different backgrounds, all different races, you do see more people from more affluent, and I don't mean affluent as in wealthy, but affluent as in living above the poverty line. Obviously, a lot of the attendees are very well dressed, they're very well prepped, and it's very obvious when a team is not. So something to keep in mind is when you're preparing your team, making sure that you can get as many people from different backgrounds, but that they can all work on a similar playing field. Yes?
Do you have a reference point as to the time commitment that students/advisors spend on Academic WorldQuest compared to Model UN? 2 years ago, I had an intern come in and look at Academic WorldQuest, and their read was, it's probably not as demanding as Model UN in terms of the time commitment. But I'm just wondering if you have a reference point on that. Anyone else?
Well, I did actually do, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. That's a great question. I did actually do Model UN as well, freshman and sophomore year, and then I transitioned high schools. So that's why there's that change there. I would say in terms of the amount of work that you do, Model UN is very document-oriented, but it's also very issue-specific. So the amount of work you're doing in terms of the workload itself doesn't actually change, but the broad scope that Academic WorldQuest asks you to cover is very different from Model UN, where you're really looking at all the facets of one particular issue. And so I think that for a lot of academic WorldQuest students, in our case, Mrs. Weck assigned us different categories, but they were still a wide variety of categories. So the amount of work I ended up doing, if I actually did the work, which is always important, you know, making sure your students study, it was heavy reading, but it was still something that was very manageable in terms of my schedule. So, yes, ma'am, and I think we'll do.
Well, along the same lines, what did you and what did other students think of the questions? Are they fun? Are they really too? I read over some of them. I thought it was just a lot of memorizing some, you know, frankly obscure points and dates and numbers. So, what's the perception of that?
You know, I think that's also a really great question. I actually also wrote some of the questions in the past as well. So, and this was last year. So I would say that from a student perspective, when you're looking at the questions, yes, it is a lot of dates. It is a lot of facts and figures. They are numbers-oriented questions generally, but I do think that those numbers are important. I think when you're a student, it's frustrating to study for specific numbers, but if you have the general picture, then the numbers are much more easier to guess when it comes to the actual questions. So if you know that there are 28 member states in the European Union, then when they talk about, you know, how many European Union states recently approved the European, you know, Courts of Human Rights decision for right to privacy, right, with Google, then if your question answers are 15, 20, 25, and 30, you can automatically figure out that 30 is probably not the right answer. And if you've been following the news, then you can say, well, I know that some major countries have approved, and these countries also have lots of support in other bases, therefore 15 is not the right answer. And obviously this is just an example, I don't know the actual number. But it's very easy to figure out the specific numbers, though yes, details can be an issue. And I'm really glad you brought that up because that's something to remember for future questions.
If there are a large number of private schools involved, does that have any push-pull with public schools, feeling like they maybe are not as competitive?
I would say I think it depends on the preparedness of the team. I think that sometimes there is this perception that public schools aren't as well prepared, but for instance, if a public school team from Massachusetts comes versus a public school team from my district, they're obviously going to be more well prepared, generally speaking, not including Mrs. Weck, who prepared us very well. But if you were to pull a team from a public high school in my district, which is generally underperforming, then yes, they wouldn't be as well prepared. However, it really does depend on whether or not the team puts in the effort. As long as the team is putting in the effort, then they can feel confident that they're going to do well in the competition.
Great. Annie, I think you had a comment. Madeline, thank you so much for sharing.
No problem.
Pardon?
Is it?
I was just going to say, has anyone hired you yet here in DC? Because you're super dynamic.
I'm open to anything.
I love it.
Annie's going to share her story
That's
as
great.
well.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much. Very, very important to have the student perspective. And I have some teacher testimonials that I would like to share, but just a quick snapshot of what we've been able to do in Pittsburgh over the last 13 years with Academic WorldQuest, which is one of about 100 school events we hold annually. And really, it's such a unique event. There's no other event like Academic WorldQuest that we do in Pittsburgh. We draw about 50 teams now. So we started 13 years ago at about 25. And so 50 is kind of our maximum, and we're looking into growing into and using different space. 4 students comprise a team, and it's really a mix of high schools. We have public, private, urban, suburban, rural, an outstanding mix. Some schools participate in other programming throughout the year. For others, this is the only thing that they do with us. Local competition questions, so kind of addressing the different questions that you can have and how to prepare students and what makes sense in your community. In Pittsburgh, we developed a hybrid model where we incorporate some of the rounds and the questions used at the national level, but we also create our own questions and prep guide with rounds that we feel are better tailored for our community. We also utilize a mix of fill-in-the-blank and multiple choice questions, but we're looking at using clickers this year to facilitate the scoring, and that's really important if we're looking at growing the number of teams to, let's say, even 60. Visibility, we have a local news celebrity moderate and MC the event, so that's great. We've been on the news a few times, so that's really helpful to have someone who's, who the kids get really excited about having her there. We also have had Steve Sokol, my boss, present in a British accent. and that was very interesting. That was fun. That's his alter ego. He can talk to you for hours with that accent. We'll do the staff meeting next time with that accent. Let's see, value impact. I think it's really important to consider the value and impact of this. When we first started out, we wanted to do something fun. We wanted to reach different types of schools. Over the years, we've had teachers tell us it's one of the most rewarding activities offered is a competition, and these are schools that participate in Model UN and forensics debate. The team format makes it low pressure, they tell us, and students overall are inspired to pay better attention to the news, and that goes with even the low-scoring teams. Another teacher tells us that it really challenges her students intellectually, sparks an interest, and is one of their all-time favorite activities. Another teacher from a rural school says in an atmosphere of standardized tests, it's nice to be involved in a friendly competition where global issues takes top billing. And I think that's really important too, to have global issues on a pedestal. Exciting, fun, test my students' global awareness. But I was really impressed when we were looking for some recent testimonials. One of the teachers from a local city school reached out to a team that won the national competition 10 years ago. And they spoke fondly of academic WorldQuest, saying that it was unparalleled by any other experience they had in high school. It was one of the most formative extracurricular experiences of my academic career. So these guys are now in law school, or they finished with law school. It was really neat to hear how they still look back on it 10 years later and really speak positively about it. So again, I'm happy to answer questions, but I just wanted to give you a quick snapshot of what we've been able to do in Pittsburgh. Thank you.
It is so great hearing all these stories. What I want to do is we have about 15 minutes left, and I want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to have a dialogue and that we can share those ideas out. So at each of your tables, if we can take the next probably just 5 minutes so that we have time for a report out, to share who is sending a team to Academic WorldQuest or not, and why. As we talk about that, I'd like you to pull together kind of what are the main reasons for participating and what are the main obstacles to participating, so that you can then appoint somebody at each of your tables to share, top reasons to participate and top problems to get solved. And as I said at the beginning of this, I have a goal that I'd like 2 people by the end of this meeting, or I will close the doors, to say I wasn't going to participate, but now I am. All righty. Questions on that? Otherwise, I'll give you guys 5 minutes to talk at each of the tables. Even, so at the table I was talking about, there were so many great ideas, both about what was working as well as how to get started. I'm going to call on Anna as our first victim from New Hampshire, and then ask each of you to really try to keep it to a minute so we can go around the table and jot down notes of somebody who you want to grab and talk more with during the coffee break, because this is what today is all about, is sharing these ideas. Do you want to kick us off?
Sure. So we were talking about how to make the questions and the content more kind of in-depth, and we are actually starting it next year, the World Affairs Council of New Hampshire.
This year? A new
yes,
member.
So 2015, this year. And we use the Montana model, which is to have sort of a conference. And because we pursued some grant funding for it, we actually got a $7,500 grant to start it. So that supports staff time, technology. They won't pay for travel costs, so we have to fundraise for that. But the only problem is when you apply for a grant, they kind of want it to serve a lot of students. So we had to make our goal, I think, 10 teams, and we would have preferred to start small. So the conference means that students that aren't just excited about competing or aren't the most competitive will have sessions on studying or working abroad, cultural taboos, do's and don'ts, a keynote speech by an ambassador or a young person to really get them inspired. And we learned it all from Montana, so I don't know if they're here, but it also helps in a rural area where kids might be coming from a far distance, and maybe it's, you know, they're more excited about coming to a full day rather than just, you know, a 2-hour competition or whatnot. So if you want to ask me questions about grants, I'm here.
Why don't you pass the microphone around? And I just got the 1-minute warning, but I'm going to go over by 5 minutes. Keep on going.
Hi, I'm Kay Maxwell with the World Affairs Forum in Stamford, Connecticut. Our table was a bit of a mixed bag, a couple that don't do it at all, a couple of others that it's sort of a mixed bag, and unfortunately I'm going to be the skunk at the garden party because we have been doing Academic WorldQuest and have chosen not to do it for this coming year. So you need 3 more. Sorry about that.
And why have you chosen not to do it?
A couple of things. First of all, money was never an issue. Plenty of money to support it, not a problem. The problem has been participation among the schools. We have potentially 70 schools that could participate in Fairfield County, Westchester County, New York. And unfortunately, particularly in Connecticut, there's no county government. So you're dealing, if you talk about dealing with a school district, you're dealing with, 30 different school districts. And I think we've all agreed that the key for any of this is finding an advisor, a teacher at a particular school who will be the person who works hard on it. And we've just decided for the amount of effort that goes into it, school by school by school, and the declining participation, that sadly, it's not because we want to stop it, but we just, it's not worth the time and effort trying to get schools to participate. And I think in our area, which is New York City, suburban Connecticut, there are just too many things we're competing with, is just the sad fact of the matter.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think finding that academic sponsor is so critical. Let's pass on to the next table.
It seems like I'm Karen Siegel. I'm from northern Michigan, Traverse City, which is an all-volunteer, no paid staff at all. And I'd say around our table here, it sounds like there's a couple very robust programs, but there's also somebody who has decided not to do it at all this year because of funding, it sounds largely, and participation and connecting with students. So I guess what I would just say is to try to be a little more optimistic is we just started it last year. We did it under $4,000. And so, I would emphasize that particularly if you're trying to start out, don't get intimidated by the iPads and all of this. It doesn't have to be that big of a deal. We emphasized for teams, we put the word out, you've never done this before, so just try it. It's an experiment. See if you like it. Have fun with it. And we only had 9 teams last year, but they had a great time. They had a super time, and we sent the winning team to Washington, D.C. And one of the ways we raised money to send them to Washington, D.C. is we did have a lecture on a hot topic. It was Ukraine at the time, and we didn't charge anything, but the kids walked around with buckets, and they raised $1,500 of people just kind of supporting them. Because we offer our lectures free to students and educators. We do have up to 100 students at our monthly events anyway, and so we do have kind of connections there that have grown and connections with teachers in the schools. So all of that has helped, but I would probably say that we're a smaller area, Traverse City, Michigan, and maybe it's easier to build those personal connections than it is in, a large area in Massachusetts or something. So I would say don't be intimidated by the money. I think the kids just like to compete. It's great if we can start offering them prizes and stuff, but we don't need to start out that way. And they just feel like the whole thing is a great time, but it's making those personal connections that I think is the challenge.
Thank you. I'm going to keep us moving around because I do want everybody to get to talk, and I need to want your coffee.
Don Sanford from the Peoria World Affairs Council, so we're very proud of Madeline over here. We're a little bit different in our state because Scholastic Bowl teams have a state championship. The Illinois High School Athletic Association treats them like a sports team. So ours is going to be November 18th 15th. So ours is coming up right after the conference. That kicks off the Scholastic Bowl season, basically. And so the contacts, you've got coaches, you know, you've got teams already formed that are used to the format and everything. So that works out really well for us because then coaches are really happy to use that kind of for their practice. And because the state makes, you know, the Scholastic Bowl an important part, that is a key. So maybe you want to talk to your state about making state competition, and you can things. And also we do an all-star team. We keep track of the students and their scoring, and we take the top 5 scores. So we don't take from a school or one team that comes in. So then the all-star team gets to come.
Thank you, Don.
And I'll only piggyback just a little bit on that. There are pros and cons to doing the all-star team because they are from 5 different high schools, so they don't know each other. They don't work together nearly as well, perhaps, as a school team that's done competitions all year. So there's pros and cons to doing it, but it works for us. At our table, one of the things that I think has not been talked about yet is the corresponding WorldQuest for adults. And to generate interest, to generate excitement and funds, having a community competition where you have businesses with other businesses, you know, neighborhood groups in Hampton Roads, you know, all corporate in Michigan, and a combination in Jacksonville. So don't forget that this isn't only for high school kids. It's also for adults. You can adapt it for adults and turn it into a really nice fundraiser plus awareness builder.
Great, thank you.
Well, I had some really, really interesting people at our table. We've got El Paso, who's just starting up, and they do not have a WorldQuest and looking to do one in 2016, so you might have something there. Dallas and Naples, Rochester, and Reading. So a couple of items that we had here that was really great points. One was Naples, and they're doing both high school and middle school, which is something that we have not talked about. We talked about adult WorldQuest, and middle school sounded like just the perfect feeder to high school, and I think they had mentioned that it's more successful, students are more excited, and there's more participation among high school students, so that might be an opportunity. Also, there's some questions raised, benchmark numbers, it would be good, maybe this is a resource to be put on the Leadership Network, you know, how much it might cost to do a WorldQuest, just a general budget for it. Also, another interesting question was about Common Core standards. We've been using it as a way to market the program, but we had some comments about Common Core standards being maybe a challenge because it's another demand on the teacher's time if they cannot put it into their regular curriculum and something that they have to do in addition. So that was an interesting point. And then one last comment was about the two more. Electronic form registration. You know, right now it's a form that we send to everybody to attach to schools for them to register. Is there maybe a possibility of making it electronic? They just go online and sign up. And then lastly, a comment about maybe a scholarship at the national level. You know, national winners, can they maybe get a scholarship? I'm assuming for maybe schools and such. Did I get everything? Yeah. Okay.
Super, thank you, Xiaoyan. 30 seconds each on the end, and then we'll wrap up.
Thanks. So I'm Craig Perry from Fairfax County Public Schools. We talked a lot about getting teachers interested in the program. I'm not very happy with Fairfax County's participation in the World Affairs Council in our region, and began to get some strategies I shared at the table and working with the DC Council. One is, and this is a great one, offer teachers a certificate from your council for professional development hours or points. So when they come to the competition, they get 10, 15, 20 hours, so they get something from doing it. That really helps with the incentive. 2, host a recruitment event, after school coffee, morning coffee, something to get teachers interested and get it on their radar. It's not on teachers' radar, I believe. Number 3, I'm gonna start targeting newer teachers that come in, have kind of a cleaner, fresh plate. Every school, every county, every district has a new event, some kind of event for new teachers coming in. Contact my equivalent there, or the principal there, or superintendent, say, can we offer coffee at that event and just get people to come by? Another event, The lady from Connecticut, I understand that the way it's formed there, but every state has some kind of state social studies council that you can tap into. We just had our conference, World Affairs Council, wherever Bill is. I don't know if you're there for NCSS, to have a booth to promote the people who go, to say, this is what our Academic WorldQuest event is. We also talked about the concern that guidance counselors in school or universities and colleges don't know about the program. They know about Model UN, they celebrate it. What about Academic WorldQuest? What else? Did I miss anything else? Great, for admissions offices for schools to get outreach to, you doing outreach to schools saying, this is an event we have, it's fantastic. I think, oh, and then lastly, another inroad, we have some international baccalaureate schools. One of the teams I coached, that was the incentive to have it at our program. So look into your districts and target the IB coordinators, international baccalaureate coordinators, as another option for students to get potentially service hours, which they have to do to fulfill for that diploma. Good?
So many good ideas, Craig.
All right.
Thank you. Last table. Anything additional you want to share? Great.
Hi, I'm Jackie Miller from Seattle. Our table really focused on those of us at the table that are not participating in WorldQuest, and that was me and Patrick. And we had some similar initial concerns about the program. One is that it's a trivia competition. And Joanne disabused us of that notion. And as I've learned more, I've only been on the job about 4 months, so I'm still learning. That we know it's not a trivia competition, but that is a larger hurdle that we're going to have to overcome to expand the program. And tying that into Common Core, I think, is really important, because if it is seen as a trivia competition, teachers are not going to be likely to devote the resources to it if it doesn't contribute to what they have to teach in the classroom. If it's not about pedagogy, if it's not about critical thinking, it's going to be an uphill battle to get teachers to sign on, perhaps even with clock hours. Another issue for us is resources. It's great that there are grants out there, but it's not just money, it's personnel, it's staff. And we have paid staff, but this would be another thing that we would have to take on. And a concern, again, I think we would need to overcome about limited reach. You know, it's reaching a limited number of students, and these are students that already like the issues anyway. So how are we contributing further to engaging, inspiring, and connecting with students who might not obviously be going to these kind of events? Anything?
I just wanted to add, so I'm from Alaska, and one of our challenges is location. I mean, we are spread over a huge location, and our winning team last year actually flew from Fairbanks all the way on their dime to participate, and they won it. And so we looked in this year into how can we do this with using technology, and if anybody has made this work, that'd be great. We tried out some technology that we currently have so that we can have people, no matter where they are spread out in the state, participate, beam them in, watch all these different students in all these different locations, using their clickers at the same time and participating, and our technology didn't work. So at least not well enough that we're willing to use it for the competition. We still want to. So if anybody has any idea on technology and how you can have more students involved, we're definitely interested.
Great. All righty. Oh, Patrick, did you want to wrap up?
Yeah, we're excited to participate this year. We did a long time ago and then didn't, but part of where we got over, Xiaoying, the point you made about it's a one-time thing. We've built it as part of our credential certificate that a student could earn if they demonstrate global competence. There's some student-directed activities, on your own activities, and this is one that they can use to get points towards that certification. So that's how we've wrapped it up into a bigger piece. So we're excited.
That's great. Thank you guys so much for sharing. I think that there were both some really, really good ideas. I know Xiaoyan was capturing them. I saw everybody scribbling on things we could do, as well as some really honest sharing of the challenges. So what I encourage you during the coffee breaks and the time is if you heard somebody who's having a challenge and you have an idea for them, please make that connection. If you heard somebody who had a good idea and you want to learn more about it, please make that connection. I'm just going to close by saying, one, so excited for the potential of this program and it to be an opportunity to bring young people into the mission of the World Affairs Council and expose them to what is so critical to what we're doing. But I also want to ask and have a raise of hand, is there, Who here is not yet participating, who is now curious to learn more? Okay, I see some hands. Everybody else swarm them during the coffee breaks and get them over the hump. Thank you all so much. Thank you for all of your story sharing, and look forward to the rest of our time.
Sir, where would you like me to put this?
Don't hurt yourself. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Patrick, and the committee. We have about 10 minutes before we'll bring on the next program, which is Vernetta Walker of BoardSource. I just want to say, you can find believers in your communities who will solve the obstacles and concerns that you're talking about. This is a fun program. It's a learning opportunity. It's not trivial. Madeline embodies exactly what I talk about every day, which is that we get them young, we grow them and inspire them, they come back to intern, you want to hire them, they will be your members, they will be your board members. Find them.